अंजल आ गए,
क्या चाहिए?
गुरुजी आ गए।
हाँ जी, आगे गुरुजी।
प्लीज डोंट
दो
जोक।
दो गुरुजी,
प्रणाम
अंजलि एंड अनमोल, दो दो गुरुजी।
गुरुजी।
प्रणाम गुरु माँ।
नहीं, मैं गुरु माँ नहीं हूँ।
तो मैं भी गुरुजी नहीं हूँ।
अभी तो मेरे गुरु तुम हो।
नहीं
अनमोल भाई, आप ये जुटला नहीं सकते, आप सबके गुरु हो अभी।
ये
हाँ।
अर्चना, योगेश, हरेश, और किसने
ट्रू
बोला था आ
ट्रू
जाने
ट्रू
को?
ट्रू।
हिमांशु said he will. Kalpana said she will.
हिमांशु ज्वाइंट।
हिमांशु has joined. Kalpana is yet to join. ठीक है, she'll join. ओके, तो लास्ट टाइम हमने वो लेटर पढ़ लिया था, बट वी आर नॉट बीन एबल टू गो इनटू इट, सो वील डू दैट। व्हाट्सएप व्हाट्सएप। Frustrate oneself. Stuck.
खांसी की तो है, 15-20।
Hmm. ये वाला हमको पढ़ना है। 1 second, I'll show on the screen. Is it visible? The
Can you
psychic
just
being is the soul, the Purusha.
yeah? Can you just paste the link on WhatsApp or
I'll
whatever?
do that. I'll do that. 1 minute. So, we are okay. We are reading from here today. Oh man, ये कौन सा है? 28 है कि 38 है? One minute. 38 है। ठीक है, recording is going on. I think Dhaval, Anjali ji, everybody is joined. Yogesh Bhai had read this last time. Somebody else would like to read? Uh, Himanshu ji, would you like to read this? Himanshu ji? Not responding. Uh,
मेरी
हाँ,
Yeah, I'll read, sir.
yeah, please read this letter.
Yeah.
नहीं नहीं, server कुछ नहीं, हाँ.
From the psychic being.
Yes, from this whole letter.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that. The psychic being is the soul, the Purusha, in the secret heart, supporting by its presence the action of the mind, life, and body. The vital is the Pranamaya Purusha, spoken of in Tretya Upanishad, the being behind the force of life. In its outer form, in the ignorance, it generates the desire soul which governs most men and which they mistake often for the real soul. The Atma is the self or spirit that remains above, pure and stainless, unaffected by the stains of life, by desire and ego and ignorance. It is realized as the true being of the individual, but also more widely as the same being in all and as the self of the cosmos. It has also a self existence above the individual and cosmos, and it is then called the Paramatma, the Supreme Divine Being. This distinction has nothing to do with the distinction between the psychic and the vital. the vital being is not what is known as the Atma. The vital, as the desire soul and desire nature, controls the consciousness to a large extent in most men, because men are governed by desire. But even in the surface human nature, the proper ruler of the consciousness is the mental being, the Manomaya Purusha. Prana, what is this?
Sharira.
Prana Sarira Neta.
Sharira.
Prana Sharira Neta of the Upanishad. The psychic influences the consciousness from behind, but one has to go out of the ordinary consciousness into the inmost being to find it and make it the ruler of the consciousness as it should be. To do that is one of the principal aims of the yoga. The vital should be an instrument of the consciousness, not its ruler. The vital is not the I. The ego is mental, vital, physical. Ego implies the identification of our existence with the outer self, the ignorance of our true self above, and our psychic being within us. In a certain sense, the various Purushas or beings in us, psychic, mental, vital, physical, are projections of the Atma. But that gets its full truth only when we get into our inner being and know the inner truth of ourselves. On the surface, in the ignorance, it is the mental, vital, physical Prakriti that acts, and the Purusha is disfigured, as it were, in the action of Prakriti. It is not our true mental being, our true vital being, our true physical being, even that we are aware of. These remain behind, veiled and silent. It is the mental, vital, physical ego that we take for our being until we get knowledge.
Right. Thank you, Himanshuji.
Thank you.
So this covers a lot of things, and I think if we go over it slowly, deliberately, consciously, many of our concepts regarding our constitution, how we are constituted, they will become clear, or at least tend towards clarity. The psychic being is the soul, the Purusha in the secret heart, what is called Riddesha in 18.61 of the Gita, supporting by its presence the action of the mind, life, and body. So he's using the words psychic being and soul interchangeably here, as he does many times in the letters on yoga. Sometimes he separates the soul by making it mean simply the spark soul or the psychic entity. But again, for practical purposes, matlab psychic entity जो है, from that only the psychic being emerges and takes shape and personality. So they are, I mean, for that practical purpose, they are the same. Okay, but just because the soul word sometimes is used for the psychic entity also, but here he is using it as matlab to show also indirectly they are basically the same thing. The psychic being is the soul, the Purusha in the secret heart, supporting by its presence the action of the mind, life, and body. So the second word here, keyword, supporting. In contrast to the word which is used for the central being, the Jivatman, which is presiding. So that is more like an overlooker, whereas this becomes part of the evolution, and this is what from its secrecy in the heart, by its presence, supports the action of the mind, life, and body. Which is why when the time comes for the soul to leave the body, so because that true support is withdrawn, so basically the mental, vital, and physical activities, they collapse and the system kind of shuts down, right? Next sentence. The vital is the Pranamaya Purusha spoken of in the Taittiriya Upanishad. The being behind the force of life, in its outer form in the ignorance, it generates the desired soul which governs most men and which they mistake, often for the real soul. So the vital is the Pranamaya Purusha spoken of in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So Taittiriya Upanishad is one of the 12 major Upanishads. Sri Aurobindo says there are 12 major. Shankaracharya ji says there are, I think, 10 or 11, something like that. But yeah, that is the roundabout figure. Taittiriya is one of the major ones. Words like, I'm just saying this for information also, because Upanishads or Vedanta, these two terms are also used synonymously. In Vedanta, sometimes we can also include Gita and Brahma Sutra, as I mentioned on the WhatsApp message. But in one word, if you want to say, Vedanta means Upanishads. They are the core of our society, Sanatan Dharma, everything is based in India on Vedanta. So it is necessary to know the Upanishads, to have some familiarity with them, if not at least some general knowledge about them. And at least before I started reading all these books, I had no idea about it, right? So words like Satyam Vada, Dharmam Chara, Matridevo Bhava, Pitridevo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava, all these are part of the Taittiriya Upanishad. Okay, I'll not go more. In Brahmanand Valli, there are 11 levels of evolution spoken of in the Taittiriya Upanishad. How the soul goes from one level to next level to next level, like that. I'll share that. I have a separate note made up in this thing. Men, then Manushya, Sanskrit words I remember, Manushya Gandharva, Deva Gandharva, then there is something called Pitru, then Ajana Jana Deva, then Deva, etc. Then Brihaspati, Prajapati, finally the Brahman, like that. It's very interesting to know. Anyway, so Pranamaya Purusha, so there it speaks of the five koshas as it is modernly known, Panchakosha. I do not recall the word Purusha being there in the Upanishad, but Pranamaya is there, spoken of in the plural. So Sri Aurobindo is saying Purusha. It's many. Sometimes the words are Upanishads are very pithy writings. So sometimes what is understood is not specifically mentioned, explicitly mentioned. So the word Purusha does not come as far as I remember. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. This is how the Taittiriya Upanishad speaks of them. Anandam Brahmano Vidvan na vibheti kutaschaneti. He who knows himself as Ananda is not afraid of anything. This is one of the great vakyas of the Taittiriya Upanishad. Several are there. Raso Vaisaha. Verily he is delight. This is from the Taittiriya Upanishad. It's a very important Upanishad. In fact, I'm just because Sri Aurobindo in his writings, he wrote almost 600 pages on the Isha Upanishad. He translated the whole of the Kena. He has translated all the major Upanishads. He gave a proper commentary on the Kena. The third Upanishad which he had taken up in the Arya for writing this thing was the Taittiriya, but the Arya basically came to its close and only there are like 1.5 articles on it. The second one is more like a draft. So Taittiriya, he has given a lot of importance. He calls it the Vedanta's Gospel of Bliss, etc. So, I personally feel that all the major Upanishads, they should be gone through at least once with some degree of seriousness. It really helps in getting our, basically in rooting ourselves to our culture and philosophy, etc. Right? So the vital is the Pranamaya Purusha spoken of in the Taittiriya Upanishad, the being behind the force of life. Okay. So as I said in the last class, when that shloka of the 7 horns and all that, 7 horns, 4 horns, and the three legs, and Chatvari Shringa Trayavasya Pada, Dve Shirshe. So in all existence, there are the two sides, Purusha and Prakriti. So there is the force, there is the life, matlab there is the nature basically. And then there is the being supporting it, the objective and the subjective, the Prakriti and the Purusha, the Shakti and the Ishvara. Another word which Sri Aurobindo uses in his Life Divine chapter is Brahman and Maya, like that. So the vital is the Pranamaya Purusha spoken of in the Taittiriya Upanishad, the being behind the force of life. ये प्राणमय पुरुष है. Okay, in its outer form, in the ignorance, in the ego consciousness, it generates the desired soul. So this pranamaya purusha, from it basically this desired soul comes up, which governs most men and which they mistake often for the real soul. Now this, for our practical purposes of self-development, self-evolution, often mistaking this desired soul for the real soul. वो desire है simply, I want something, but oh, it's coming to me from my soul. मेरी अंतरात्मा मुझे कह रही है कि मुझे ये चाहिए. This is a common delusion. And basically, self-deception is one of the greatest enemies of our progress, as we know, right? So, yeah. Like, मैंने एक एग्जांपल जैसे पहले दिया था कि वो सोलमेट का एक कॉन्सेप्ट एंड स्पिरिचुअल पार्टनर का एंड ऑल दिस. सो आई मीन that is basically a play of the desired soul. जो Sri Aurobindo का, there is a series of messages, they were published maybe on the ashram notice board recently. वो होता ही नहीं है उसमें. In fact, that energy of love that can get its true satisfaction only in the divine. He has said it very, very clearly in the last two paragraphs of the Godward Emotions chapter from the Synthesis of Yoga. So that is one of the common delusions wherein it's just a desire to have a companion or whatever, partner, etc. Whereas no soulmate, और आजकल उसके तो आप जाएं इंटरनेट पे ट्विन सोल एंड दिस एंड पता नहीं क्या क्या. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo का भी कुछ लोग नहीं वो तो, but they are like Ishvara and the Shakti. They are incarnations. They are, and even if they were apart, when they were apart, they were still working together. Mother, even before meeting Sri Aurobindo, if you see her writings before 1914, she is mentioning words like supermind and new race and all even before meeting him. तो वो बिल्कुल अलग चीज है, right? Of course, I should furnish more examples for it. Basically this, कि one has to have that honesty within oneself, not to confuse the desired soul with the real soul. Again, जो हमने आज से 2 सेशन पहले पढ़ा था, what is the difference? The vital is full of demand, right? Whereas the psychic is full of self-giving. These are the two pair of opposite words, right? This is how to distinguish. The soul always wants to give itself, whereas the vital, in some or the other chadma mein, in some or the other pretense, it is just demanding, right? So that we have to be. Last time we हमने one of the words which we have to eradicate from the vital nature, rejection वाला जो part था which we heard in the mother's voice, one of the words was demand. All that basically, and vital is the chief obstacle in the progress, in the coming forward of the psychic being, right? So this much is clear. Anybody has any comments, questions, anything to say before I move forward? No? Okay. I can't see any faces also, so I'm like, is anybody even there or not? Okay. The Atma is the, thank you Anjali ji. The Atma is the self or spirit that remains above, pure and stainless, Shuddham, Apapaviddham. These are two words for it from the 8th verse of the Isha Upanishad. Unaffected by the stains of life. Stainless के लिए गीता में also there is a word. Anagha is one word used for Arjuna, the sinless one. Agha means sin. Anagha means sinless, stainless. I think there is one more word, मुझे भी याद नहीं आ रहा है. निर्लिप्ता is one word, but वो गीता उपनिषद में मुझे गीता में वो निर्लिप्त रूप में नहीं है, दूसरा न लिप्यते नरे वैसे आता है. Anyway, so the Atma is a self or spirit that remains above, pure and stainless. It is the ever pure, the perfectly untainted. It cannot be tainted by any kind of evil or any kind of ignorance, right? Unaffected by the stains of life, by desire and ego and ignorance. It is this self which comes down into us and becomes the soul spark, which in turn, like a tree comes out of a seed, becomes the psychic being, right? So we are carrying that pure, stainless, and absolutely unaffected by anything negative. We are carrying that within us. It is one of the most fundamental postulates of Vedanta and yoga, basically Indian psychology, to remember this despite anything, कि मेरे अंदर वो absolutely pure and stainless चीज है. ठीक है? So the Atma is the self or spirit that remains above, pure and stainless, unaffected by the stains of life, by desire and ego and ignorance. It is realized as the true being of the individual, but also more widely as the same being in all. So this Atma, it is realized as the true being of the individual. वही न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. 2.20 of the Gita, several other shlokas succeeding that. This is our true being. The psychic being is the true being from the point of view of evolution. But we pre-exist the evolution. Even when the evolution was not happening, we were there. What does Gita say when Bhagavan starts speaking in 2.12? There was never a time when I was not, or you were not, or these kings were not, and there will never be a time when I will not be, or you will not be, or these kings will not be. So we always were, we always will be. That is our true being, right? But also उसी को आत्मा कहते हैं. Individual जब बन जाता है जीवात्मा कहते हैं. We have been repeating this in our classes. Also more widely as the same being in all. सबके अंदर वही आत्मा है, and as the self of the cosmos, Vishvatma. It is the same thing which is the self of the cosmos also, and it is the same which is inside every individual also. We can go back in our mind and refer to verse number 6 and 7 of the Isha. वहां पे the word that is used is Atma only. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevānupashyati sarvabhuteshu chātmanam tato na vijugupsate yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhut vijanatah tatra ko moha kah shoka ekatvam anupashyatah. So in Smith, the three are spoken of. The three, basically, you could say, the poises कह सकते हैं, या the self becomings कह सकते हैं of the Atman, wherein everything is in the self is in everything, and it is the self which has become everything. अगर हम lower से higher जाए in that sense, from near to the far, then first is the self within us. So in everything, the self is there. Second, everything is in the self. And third, it is the self which has become everything. Right? We have mentioned this earlier also many times. It has also a self-existence above the individual and cosmos. And it is then called the Paramatma, the supreme divine being. So even when the individual existence separately is not there, or the cosmos is not there, this is there. So our main text which we are following in these classes, the essays on the Gita and the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, in the 8th chapter, he says कि जब मैं इनका अपने अंदर संवरण कर लेता हूँ, and then, against their own will, avashah, they come out of me. So even when the time is there when all these individual souls have been absorbed into the divine, or the cosmos itself has been absorbed into the divine, what is called pralay or mahapralay, even then this supreme divine being is there. Usko कहते हैं Paramatma. The Sanskrit word Param, the English equivalent is the word supreme, right? This distinction has nothing to do with the distinction between the psychic and the vital. ये बिल्कुल अलग है. The vital being is not what is known as the Atma. Right? So for example, जैसे जो disembodied beings हैं, right? They are there in their vital sheath. उसकी आत्मा मुझे दिखाई दी, right? There was a film which came by this name. वो आत्मा नहीं है. The word आत्मा, this is what it means in the आध्यात्मिक साहित्य, in the spiritual literature. The self or spirit that is pure and stainless, unaffected by the stains of life, by desire, ego, ignorance, etc. So to absolutely clear the air, कि the vital being is not what is known as the Atma. The vital is the desire being. Desires, emotions, ambitions, passions, all that is the vital. And to this confusion, this mistaking the desired soul for the real soul, this self-deception, which inevitably happens, I think, almost to everybody until they reach a certain stage of development. ये अभी तक जितना हमने पढ़ा है उसमें practical point सबसे बड़ा ये है. One of the major obstacles to our forward march. Right?
So Anmol,
Yes.
if we connect to what we had read the last time, we ended by saying that
Yes.
the psychic is the soul personality.
Yeah,
If I read that last line,
I've shown that text
it's
on
a-
the screen. Yeah.
right. So that starts by saying that even when we, and here it specifies that if you don't look at desire, because you get confused when there is that aspect of you, but if you get into stillness, for people that meditate, that reality of yourself, the psychic being, you experience that in the stillness. But here he's beautifully differentiated that from the Atma, because the psychic is a personality and it's still linked to an individual, whereas here he's bringing in the soul, which he says is everything is within that soul.
No,
So
no,
there
no,
isn't an element.
he's not using the word soul. For that, जिसके अंदर सब कुछ है, for
Atma,
that he's
Atma.
using, no, the English word is self, yeah. So
Yeah,
we
it
do
says the
not
Atma is the self
correct,
or
correct.
spirit
Yes.
that remains above,
Yes.
pure and stainless,
Yes.
unaffected by the stains of life, by desire and ego and ignorance.
Yes.
It is realized as the true being of the individual, but also more widely as the same being in all
Correct.
and as the self of the cosmos. So here
Yes.
he's differentiating whatever we talk about the psychic being and the psychic entity, which is specifically linked
Yeah.
to an individual and has a personality.
Yeah.
He's differentiating the Atma from it
Yeah.
and saying this is
This
it's
is
not,
the
it doesn't have that
unaffected.
individual
Yeah.
aspect.
Yes.
It's above the individual and cosmos,
Yes.
and it has a self-existence which is above the individual.
Correct.
Right?
So we could also say like this: it is the same Atma which in its supreme poise is called as the Param Atma. Atma mane self, Param mane supreme. So that is the supreme self or the supreme divine being. Okay? When
Correct.
that manifests as the cosmos, then we call it universal self or Vishwa Atma or cosmic self. Okay? When it manifests further as the individual, then we call it Jivatma.
Right. Just to distinguish between the psychic, see, while we are having this discussion on the text, I, as Yogesh, as an individual, I have the psychic being, the soul personality, but all of us that are listening to this conversation, the complete group, if you put your attention to that, this is no longer the individual. All of us collectively listening to this Upanishad's perspective and the translation of what we are reading in the letter, it is actually the Atma. It's both are coexisting, because at every second, both are coexisting. It's, as you rightly said, that this is also within us, but because our attention is always with the individual entity, the other reality, which is us, it's there right now, but I can't even put my attention and think that it is the same me, which is within all of us, which is listening to this collectively as a group. I don't identify with it because I'm so convinced I am the individual which is within the body.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Am I right in saying this? That
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
Atma is still here. The Atma is listening to this
Exactly.
conversation of us.
Exactly. The self is in all of us, all 12, 13 of us who are there, and it is the same self in everybody. It is
Right.
absolutely same, and until we find that, the Upanishad says we cannot have peace. Tatra ko mohaha kaha shoka ekatvam anupashyatah. वो उस तरह कहता है कि हाउ कैन यू बी हैविंग डिल्यूजन और हाउ कैन यू बी हैविंग ग्रीफ if you have attained the oneness. You could flip it around and say, if you do not feel that oneness, then you will never get out of delusion because you are deluded. It is oneness which is the truth, and you will never truly come out of sorrow and grief. That is why Sri
Correct.
Aurobindo beautifully towards on the last page of Savitri, he writes, to feel love and oneness is to live. If you are not feeling that oneness, then you are आप केवल कहने के लिए जिंदा हो. From the spiritual point of view, you are not really alive if you are not feeling that oneness and living that oneness.
Correct. And if I was listening with complete purity, then the aspect of desire, because this is what the paragraph says earlier, that it is the desire which always comes in, which differentiates you and
Yes.
gets you to be the individual.
Yes.
If there was no desire, then the presence of just listening with
Yes.
purity to what's going
Yes.
on
Yes.
is actually a
It will
oneness
make one
state that
have
all
the
of us are
experience of the
receiving.
self within oneself.
Right.
I have
Perfect.
highlighted the troublesome part, जो होता है the desired soul which governs most men and which they mistake often for the real soul, right? And
Perfect.
just to
Thanks.
make it clear, because जहाँ से शुरू हुआ था योगेश जी का question, so Atma, the corresponding English word is self, okay? Soul, मतलब English word, the corresponding Sanskrit word is Purusha. I have never seen Sri Aurobindo using Purusha self के लिए or vice versa. It is always Atma के लिए, the English equivalent is self, and Purusha के लिए, the English equivalent is soul. Always. So I'll moving forward.
Anmol,
Yes.
last time we read that.
जीती आपके
There
दो
is-
login हो रखे हैं, so there is an echo. You may have
Okay,
to
okay, I'll
disconnect
just
one of
switch
them.
this off 1 minute, please. I don't know how to go about it. Okay. I think now it's okay.
Yeah.
Acha. Now my question is that last time when we read, you said that the vital being, the what you call pranamaya kosh, or all the koshas for that matter, have that what you call the psychic being or the consciousness, what you call, and this is there's a veil on it, and when this veil becomes very it is opaque, and then it becomes translucent, and then what you call transparent, and you become luminous. But now today we say that it is mistaken for the vital what was there. It is mistaken for
The desired soul is
the
being mistaken
desires.
for the real soul.
Yeah.
वही
So
चीज है.
that
The desired
it
soul.
is there,
Yes,
it
tell
is
me.
still there, but it is covered with the desire, and it become opaque, right?
Exactly. The Gita in the 3rd chapter, verse number, अभी मुझे याद नहीं है, I remember the verse. So it gives 3 analogies. कि just as fire is covered by smoke, just as a mirror is covered by dust, ठीक है? And just as the embryo in the womb is covered by the membrane which surrounds the fetus. It gives 3 examples. Dhumena vriyate vakhnihi. Sanskrit is very beautiful. Dhumena vriyate vakhnihi yatha darsho malena cha yathol bena vrito garbha tatha te nedam avritam. In similar way, the desire covers the true self.
Vimalam, I now remember. Malena, you said, no?
Yeah.
The stainless word for stainless, Vimalam, right?
Vimala, हाँ, Vimala होगा, हाँ. So, yeah, I'll share the verse after the class. It's one
Also,
of the
Anmol
most
bhai,
practical verses to keep in mind as one is fighting the desire, ego complex out of oneself. It really helps. Uska remembrance. Okay, again, this desire thing has come up and it has clouded my soul. It has clouded the true self in me. It is a very helpful verse, very practical.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anmol bhai,
Yes.
you had mentioned ये जो अभी earlier about Purusha as Sri Aurobindo uses this whenever anything takes a personality, then only the word Purusha, Chaitya Purusha. So that also can be the distinction, no? We can take it as an, because you just said that
You mean to
Purusha
say,
means,
हाँ, you mean to say कि हाँ वो ठीक है, but Purusha is the rough equivalent of the English word person. वो even sound wise it is similar.
huh? But
हाँ,
when you take a personality, then
हाँ,
only we call it as a
correct,
person, no?
correct.
नहीं
It is
तो
the person who has these
हाँ,
personalities,
correct,
and
हाँ,
you know it is the person. अगर आप उसके separate personalities देखें, if the personality itself becomes individual, then the personality becomes the person, like that. So
huh. But
yeah.
then soul is not associated with personality. Soul in its purest form. That is why he says, right? Soul.
Yeah, but जैसे यहाँ पे
Atma.
लिखा है the psychic being is the soul. So
हाँ,
यहाँ पे the way he is using the word soul, psychic being is also called psychic personality. So you
हाँ,
could say that the soul is the psychic personality.
हाँ,
Basically, you have to have the idea clear in your mind कि there are
हाँ,
these three things. आप उनको किस नाम से कैसे बुलाते हो अपनी convenience के लिए या to make yourself understood to somebody, that is the that is depending on the circumstance. But you should
बराबर
be clear
बराबर
कि what is, which is why we have been spending so much time on getting this fundamental clarity.
correct.
Right? Okay, next. The vital as the desire soul and desire nature controls the consciousness to a large extent in most men because men are governed by desire. This is the truth of human life. The vital as the desire soul and desire nature controls the consciousness, to a large extent in most men because men are governed by desire, which is why one of the half a verse from the Gita, dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. I am desire that is unopposed to dharma. Mane, the impulse to do something right, something in accordance with dharma, it should not be suppressed in the name of getting rid of desire from within oneself. It is actually not desire, it is the spiritual counterpart of desire. It is the Chit Shakti of which we become the instrument. But still, I mean, that verse from the Gita, Dharma aviruddha ki bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. I am the kama in men that is not against dharma. It's very important to remember that. Otherwise, we will become simply nishkriya, that fighting for the divine victory in the world within ourselves, manifesting the divinity, none of that will happen otherwise, right? But even in that's in the 7th chapter, I'll share the verse. I mean, you just snippets and a few verses here and there, it helps to keep them in mind and to read them, mull over them, like that. It is very helpful. It is very helpful, genuinely helpful. But even in the surface human nature, the proper ruler of the consciousness is the mental being, the Manomayaha Purushaha Prana Sharira Neta of the Upanishad. This is the Mundak Upanishad from where he is quoting it. So, yeah, we are not human beings unless our mental being is dominating. Roughly, we can say the Sattva Guna. So, until that Sattvic clarity has emerged and we are being governed by that Sattvic mind, we are, we do not have the right to call ourselves human beings. We are half animal, half human, governed by our desire and this and that. But the whether we grow into our manhood, properly speaking, when that sattvic mind, which is why, Sri Rama, the avatar of the sattvic mind, which is why, his relevance and his fundamental importance for humanity today and for a long time to come, until the time when a large part of humanity has at least reached his level, right? So, but even in the surface human nature, the proper ruler of the consciousness is the mental being. The psychic influences the consciousness from behind. So, step by step, he is going. Okay, most men are governed by desire. Okay, normally, as a first step, first try to govern yourself by the mental being, by the sattvic mind. That is the proper ruler. उसके एक हिडन एंटिटी है विच इज द ट्रू रूलर, दैट इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड द साइकिक. सो वो स्टेप बाय स्टेप चल रहा है. वाइटल, देन माइंड, देन ही स्पीकिंग ऑफ द साइकिक. द साइकिक इन्फ्लुएंसेस द कॉन्शियसनेस फ्रॉम बिहाइंड. वही दोज soft suggestions, unobtrusive, but very clear. No, don't do this. Or yes, this is right. Something vibrates from within, that psychic influence, that recognition of the true, the good, the beautiful. The psychic influences the consciousness from behind. But one has to go out of the ordinary consciousness into the inmost being to find it and make it the ruler of the consciousness as it should be. One has to go out of the ordinary consciousness into the inmost being to find it and make it the ruler of the consciousness as it should be. Basically becoming a deeper and deeper person gradually, and ultimately discovering that true depth within ourselves, that true soul, whose vision is unmistakable. Once that is found and that you know becomes in charge of the life, then that is the sunlit path, and uh, one has a very clear idea as to what has to be done. None of the half light, half darkness of the mind or the turbid movements of the vital, none of them can hold sway over you, basically.
So, Anmol, in Sri Aurobindo's writings and the letters,
Yeah.
the two sheets, which is the Manomay and the Pranomay, comes regularly. When he talks about the control being to the true entity, which is the psychic entity within us, the bridge, which is what we hear in the other sheath, which is the Vigyanmay, because Vigyanmay is supposedly the bridge which is always aware of the presence of the psychic entity within. So, what is the Sri Aurobindo's counter? Is it the Chaitanya Purush, which is his equivalent of the Manomay, of the Vigyanmay, the fourth sheath?
No, that's not what he says, at least. He doesn't say that. You're basically asking how to relate the Vijnanamaya and the Anandamaya Purusha, or particularly the Vijnanamaya Purusha, to the psychic being. That is your
Because see,
question.
here the inmost being, which he's referring right now, the psychic entity, because he says the inmost being, to find it and make it the ruler of the consciousness as it should be. So he's giving you a categoric guidance,
Yes.
saying that there is a reality which is your psychic entity, which is
Yes.
within you.
Yes.
And when you elevate your mind to always be linked, because the moment your mind is linked and is in constant touch every second with this psychic entity, and you thereby then completely look up to the psychic entity before you make anything, any decision, you are in that bridge. And the equivalent bridge we talk about when we talk about the sheets is the Vigyanmay. Because for people who have sharp intellect, they realize that in this journey of life, the mind-body complex is an instrument. But who's the ruler of the instrument within the body,
That is
which
the
is the
psychic
psychic
being.
entity,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So the bridge is always the Vigyan. Vigyanmay is telling you, if you are on
First
the
of all,
Vigyanmay, you will never lose this bridge. Na? It's
I'll
a
tell you.
connect which is always there.
I'll try to share what I understand about it. Okay. So when we use this terminology of Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, etc., sheath, vehicle, all these words I use. Body is also used interchangeably for the Sanskrit word kosha. As I understand, so basically the Vijnanamaya Kosha is already part of our system. We already have it. It is part of Karan Sharira उसको बोलते हैं, ठीक है? And because we have it, we are in some sort of connection or touch with the supramental plane, which is the knowledge plane, and some of the pure knowledge, मतलब which is unmistakable. कोई आपको thought आया and it is a true thought, okay? मतलब it is true because it is basically coming from that pure untainted light, etc. It enters into us through the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Similarly, if we experience true Ananda, unmixed by desire or anything, that is because that we are experiencing through the Anandamaya Kosha. Okay? Let me say, there are like two other planes of consciousness, the Chit Kosha and the Sat Kosha. we do not have the corresponding the Chit plane and the Sat plane. We do not have the corresponding kosha in our system. So there is nothing called the Chit kosha, there is nothing called the Sat kosha. So if we want to experience pure consciousness, then we have to go into a trance. Similarly, if we have to experience pure existence, we have to go into a trance, right? So basically, the possibility of experiencing a moment of pure knowledge or a moment of pure ananda is there already in us by virtue of our evolution so far through these Vijnanamaya kosha and Anandamaya kosha. This is what I understand. Okay. Now, जो psychic being है, it is not these koshas. It is the Purusha. It is the entity which is dwelling inside all these koshas. ठीक है? The Chaitya Purusha is not the Vijnanamaya kosha or the Anandamaya kosha. वो शीत या vehicle नहीं है. It is a being. Okay. It is a portion of the eternal like that. So, I mean, they are all connected, I guess. Probably, I mean, if the knowledge is coming, let's say if somebody has experienced one drop of true Ananda, okay? So, the experience of that in the human embodiment has been made possible because of the Anandamaya kosha that we are all having, okay? I mean, uska process पूरी तरह explain करना I'm finding it difficult कि कैसे करूं.
Right,
But
right. Because
this
see,
is
the
what I
word
understand.
ruler, see,
Yes.
what he's doing is he's bringing in the other two, which is the Manomay. If you see what we've read till now,
Yes.
he
So,
brings in the Manomay.
Yes.
He brings in, he first says that you've got the Pranmay, but Pranmay is also controlled by the Manomay. This
Yes.
is where he's going. And he's saying, but the Manomay is taking you in the right direction, but the ruler
Yes.
is something else.
Yes.
And
This has to be clear.
the ruler means whoever is the support functions, which is the Vigyanmay, or rather, which is the Manomay and the Pranmay, they should always engage with the ruler and let the ruler decide, because ruler is supposed to decide.
Yes. Yes. And if you are more in connection with your Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya kosha, if you are getting, by which I mean that you are getting more and more spurts of true knowledge. मतलब एक ऐसा आइडिया जो एकदम luminous है and you know it is right. Right? There is no question. Just somehow it has come, you know it, because it is knowledge. It has come from the plane of true knowledge. Similarly, instead of the mixture of pleasure and pain and this and that, if you get a drop of true Ananda, you know it is Ananda. And then you will be more careful in using the word Ananda for something lesser. Okay? So if
Right.
these experiences are becoming more frequent, then obviously it means that the ruler, जिसको Sri Aurobindo बोल रहे हैं, the psychic being, it has started coming forward.
And
Definitely.
the ruler here is the Chaitanya that he talks about.
He calls it the Chaitya Purusha.
Chaitya Purusha.
Chaitya Purusha.
Perfect.
ठीक है?
Thanks.
इसमें I should, for the sake of completeness, add कि जैसे मैंने कहा कि विज्ञानमय कोशा जो है, through that and by virtue of having this material embodiment, I am having the 5 koshas. ये तो अन्नमय कोश है ही है, that which we can see, right? Pranamaya के through, Manomaya के through, etc. So, like through the Vijnanamaya, I am getting these spurts of true knowledge. Through the Anandamaya, I am getting these even rarer spurts of true Ananda, right? Similarly, जो mental domain है, it's a very vast domain. These thoughts and ideas, I am getting through the Manomaya kosha. Similarly, the desires and ambitions and large passions, ambitions, ye hona chahiye, you know, all those great vital aims and all, I am getting through the Pranamaya kosha. That is the process through which these things are entering into. That is basically my connect to these hidden planes of existence. Because I am on the physical plane. But being on the physical plane, I am getting these massive vital impulses, or I am getting these fantastic mental ideas, you know, like that, mental suggestions, ऐसे करना है, वैसे करना है. Knowledge is something higher than the mind. It has always to be understood. Mind is ignorance, seeking for knowledge. जो knowledge है, या फिर knowledge के लिए the word Sri Aurobindo uses a supermind, that is in possession of itself, there is no ignorance in it. So if you will get a very strong idea from the mental plane, it will be quite clear, but still it will not have absolute certainty. Whereas if it is coming from the Vijnana plane, from the supermind plane, there will be no question of any doubt whatsoever. You will be, you know, as sure of it as the rising of the sun tomorrow morning, like that. Is that clear?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. And what was the second thing? if the Vijnana and Ananda are more active, koshas, then that means the psychic being, the true ruler of the being of the whole system, has started coming into its own. Right?
Anmol bhai, you
Yes.
said this about this, right? You know that it is right. This
Yes.
symptomatically,
Mm.
if you find yourself self-justifying, then we should know that it is, somewhere half light, half dark
Yeah.
impulse. But if you don't even feel the need to justify,
Yes.
again, I'm talking from my
See.
other aspect.
Huh.
If I
Yes.
don't feel the need to justify only, no, okay, it's okay.
And
If the
actually
others
mind
accept
जो
or
है
not
ना, तो
accept
मनोमय कोशा
is
है,
not. I know this
it
is
is an
correct.
arranger. Yeah, 1 second. Just 1 second. 1 second.
Uh,
I'll come back to you. Mind जो है, the manomaya kosha, as we are saying, it is merely an arranger. Okay. The true idea जो है, it is coming from a plane above the mind. Mind is simply an instrument for arranging those ideas.
Hmm.
It says my internet connection is unstable. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah. Yeah.
Also, Anmol bhai, you mentioned that the other two koshas are not present, but somewhere I have read in Letters on the Yoga or somewhere, since the principle of unity operates in the upper hemisphere, uh, the koshas are mixed, and primarily it is experienced as Ananda. Therefore, Anandmay kosha is Satchid Anand. Anandmay kosha
वो
is
ठीक है, वो ठीक है. But
you.
what I am talking about,
You
I have read
mentioned.
it. I understand what you're saying.
Uh,
But अभी we are just मतलब getting just crystal clarity कि koshas कौन से हैं, and like this is what Sri Aurobindo has said in multiple places. Record of yoga में है. It's there in Hymns to the Mystic Fire that the two higher planes, चित कोशा and सत कोशा.
हाँ.
चित कोशा और सत कोशा नाम की कोई चीज है ही नहीं अभी ह्यूमन सिस्टम में.
You breaking.
Yeah, I am saying there is nothing called Chit Kosha
Acha,
and
it is
Sat
not.
Kosha as part of the human system yet. I mean, at least when he wrote it, like almost 100 years ago or so, it was not there.
हाँ.
Yeah. So in
अच्छा,
order to
अच्छा.
experience,
But
listen
ये
carefully,
मैंने
इसमें कोई
पढ़ा
बहुत
है
वो
कि
नहीं है. If you want to experience pure existence, then you have to go into a kind of trance, a kind of total disconnect with your embodiment, because the corresponding link between the kosha is basically the corresponding link between your system as it is embodied in this material world and those higher planes of consciousness.
Correct.
So because the link
Correct.
is not built, so naturally you will have to go into a total
एक्सपीरियंस
trance.
हाँ कनेक्शन ही नहीं है, मतलब वो है ही नहीं तो वायर्स ही नहीं
और
है
वो
तो
भी
कहाँ से
एवोल्यूशन में धीरे धीरे बिल्ड होगा, राइट? बट एज ऑफ नाउ इट इज नॉट देयर, whereas Vijnana and Ananda is there. So any absolutely pure and clear knowledge which is coming, right? जैसे Upanishads हैं, when they came, so they have obviously come through the Vijnana kosha. What they are stating is truths, right? Similarly, maybe something like the Bhagavad Puran, which is so full of Ananda, something like Savitri, you see? These higher things, these higher poetry, higher prose, spiritual writings, जो एकदम श्रुति जिसको बोलते हैं, they are coming through the Vijnana kosha. Directly.
श्रुति दृष्टि and all, right?
Yes, that is why उसको बोलते हैं आप्तवाक्य प्रमाण. There is no need to question this. ये प्रमाण है, the word itself is its proof. And if we chant the mantra with a certain degree of openness and shraddha and receptivity, etc., I mean, you just chant the Upanishad, you will perhaps get into even tears and ecstasy because it is so powerful, because it's just come like that. Right? Even just say, Letters on Yoga we are reading, if we read it very slowly, consciously, it is so powerful, it will send us into a kind of inner state.
Yes, it does. Very clear.
We experienced it once or twice in the group. Right? So yeah. In 9, we have like 6-7 minutes time wise. The psychic influences the consciousness from behind, but one has to go out of the ordinary consciousness into the inmost being to find it and make it the ruler of the consciousness as it should be. To do that is one of the principal aims of the yoga. Absolute and crystal clear कि to make the psychic being the ruler is one of the principal aims of the yoga. Okay. और क्या प्रिंसिपल्स एम है? प्रिंसिपल एम्स हैं द डिस्कवरी ऑफ द सेल्फ, द डिस्कवरी ऑफ दिस प्योर एंड स्टेनलेस एंड unaffected entity, and the identification of our consciousness with this. This is one of the principal aims of the yoga, right? Very clearly he's saying. The vital should be an instrument of the consciousness, not its ruler. Mother rephrases it. Vital is a bad master, but a good servant. So if the vital becomes if it becomes the master, then there will be a lot of confusion, disorder, many problems, because it does not have the light now. So it is not a good master. Its true purpose is to be a good servant, to be a good instrument of the consciousness. It should never be the ruler of the consciousness. But वो ruler बन जाता है because the whole energy is in the vital. If the vital is not there, it is we find in group settings energetic people trying to dominate, and those who are quiet and more intelligent, they are not getting a chance to speak because it is the the loud mouths और जो वैसे बहुत energetically push करने वाले हैं वो अपना वो बोल देंगे. So it's just the vital suppressing the psychic. Sorry, it's just the vital suppressing the mental. Like that. So it should not be allowed. The vital should be an instrument of the consciousness, not its
Can you
ruler.
repeat? Your stable is. Can you repeat? Because the connection is very bad. I'm able to. I don't know if it's for everyone or just me.
One second.
But-
Yes, no, it's very bad. We couldn't hear it. Yeah.
Coming all in broken. 1 minute. Okay, is it okay now? Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, better now.
I was just saying that, like in group settings, also we can see happening that vital means energy, right? So the more energetic people who are simply having more energy, Josh jisko bolte hain, right? They can tend to push through some certain things and certain decisions and all. Whereas the more intelligent ones, those who are having a more developed mind, that way. So they are quieter and they are not so pushy and not so assertive. So the vital then tends to dominate and rule the setting, rule the decision making, etc. That should not happen. The vital is a good master, it's a good instrument, but it should never be allowed to become the ruler. It's a very, very simple thing which he's saying. Nothing very great here, right? Am I audible?
Yes, Anmol, you're audible.
That is all he's saying here. Next, we'll just at least finish this letter today. The vital being is not the I. The ego is mental, vital, physical. Yeah. So it's not that it's just the vital which is the ego. The ego is there in all the three. In the mental also, in the vital also, in the physical also. Ego is the binding mechanism of and the entire lower nature, as we said. Roughly, we can say the physical dominated would be the tamasic ego. The vital dominated would be the rajasic ego. The mental dominated would be the sattvic ego. But it is still ego. It is not free from the sense of separateness. Here he is making the point clear that the vital being is not the I. The I is the ego, and that is there supporting all the three planes. Ego is basically the substitute of the soul till the soul has found itself and has pushed the ego out. Till then, the ego is basically functioning in place of the soul, in place of that individual entity. Psychologically, that is what it is. Am I audible?
Yeah, Anmol, in what you read just now, he's categorically telling you that there are two paths. The path of ego, which is linked to the physical, emotional, mental, or the physical, vital, mental, is the way we are all engaging in. But if you have to engage the right way, which is not the way of ignorance, but the way of knowledge, is that he's repeated it enough times that this separate entity belief that we have, that separate entity belief you have to overcome, because that separate entity belief that you have, it is shrouded by the reality of your true self. It's saying of our true self above and a psychic being within us. So he's saying that there are two poises that you have to experience, as you rightly said, the self within and the Atma above. Both of those are telling you that it is one reality, and that one reality is all of these separate because in the earlier letters he said that there is a spiritual, the term I'm trying to recollect, that he said that there is this identity which you have in a larger spiritual oneness. It had come in our last letter. So he's there, he categorically says that this personality, the soul personality, is what he's related to the psychic being here. But the oneness which you are ignoring, which is pure knowledge, is your true self.
Correct.
Now, everything that we are doing till now is being driven by ego, because we are completely in belief with this, that we are this mind body complex, right? I mean, if I look at it from the time I'm born, I'm conditioned to believe that I am this self. The moment I use any of those terms, I'm relating it to my body, myself, as a separate physical, mental, vital entity, right? Now he's saying that you have to give the control to this aspect within you, which is aware that there is one reality,
Yes.
and that is the only reality. And this is what was the illuminated ego, the term, the previous session that you did with us.
The
It starts
illuminated
by
ego is not the reality. That is simply the sattvic ego. The word was
correct,
enlightened ego.
correct. He said that this is, I mean, all of us who are on this call are aware that there is one reality and we are trying to move into the journey of experiencing it. So he said, he categorically differentiated that it is, when people say I, it's the illuminated ego, which is the starting point. This is where we are done
Yeah.
the last class,
Yeah,
right? So I'm saying the control being given to this psychic entity within us is the driver. What do we have to do in the world, in our day-to-day engagement to experience this, is that we have to always think of the oneness which is
Not audible. Hello? Am I audible?
ego consciousness, which is a separate entity.
I'd lost
Because
you for a few seconds.
Yeah, what I was saying is, Anmol, what is it that we have to do in the day-to-day to make this a reality of existence for ourselves, but not just a theoretical lecture that we listen to twice a week?
Base yourself on self-giving rather than
Correct.
on demand. That is the first thing.
Right.
Basing oneself on self-giving rather than on demand. And basically, आपका अपना काम है, व्यक्तिगत जो साधना है, that is to drive out the egoistic consciousness from within oneself, and it will be a challenging process because everybody is living naturally in the ego, and till they have reached that point where they start finding it uncomfortable, then you will be like swimming upstream. It will be very difficult. So वो होगा, but then that is what it is कि you have to stick to your own this thing and try to drive out the sense of separateness and that ego. And that is why many times the spiritual seekers, they used to go away from the world, but then again उनके जो spiritual gains हुए हैं, they are only partially communicated to the society at large. All those problems are there then. So, but basically, it is basing oneself on devotion to the divine. What are the signs of the psychic? Self-giving. One of the greatest characteristics. Self-giving. कि instead of trying to take कि मुझे यहाँ से क्या मिलेगा, what's in it for me, right? Instead of that, what can I give here? मैं यहाँ अपना क्या offer कर सकता हूँ? How can I contribute my knowledge, my strength, my power, my position, my money, etc. जो भी in a rightful way. Obviously not to show my ego. देखो मैंने कितना दे दिया, मैं कितना दानवीर हूँ. Not like that, right? But in it, what can I? If कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता, somebody can just provide some physical service, right? गुरुद्वारे में लोग physical service करते हैं कि नहीं करते? And even the richest person, they offer it without any ego, isn't it? So that self-giving.
Just the idea behind it.
Yeah, that bhakti, psychic being के क्या characteristics हैं? If we have to replace, and actually, I'll actually link that article today. Psychic education करके मदर का एक article है. Education simply means to bring forth. वो educe word से आता है. E means out. Educe means essentially bring forth. उसमें मदर ने point wise बताया है how to bring the psychic being forward. Dhaval bhai had referred to it last time. I think मतलब the time has come basically कि I should share that article today, and before the next class everybody can read it. उसमें practical do's and don'ts mother has told how to bring the psychic being forward. It is in a मतलब simplicity of language wise also it is simpler, and it is very, very downright practical.
एजुकेशन का बताना एक बार अनमोल, जो अभी बताया आपने
I'll tell you. So
एजुकेशन को
it
स्प्लिट
comes from
करके.
the word, मतलब उसको if you break it,
हम्म,
e जो होता है prefix that means out. इंग्लिश में e और x दोनों का मतलब बाहर होता है. And educe का मतलब होता है bring forth. तो what education the word essentially means is to bring forth, बाहर निकालना. तो you know that psychic spark within us, that seed soul within us, उसकी flowering होना, that becoming the psychic being, and it becoming a strong psychic being and enlightened mental, you know, powerful, vital, beautiful, physical, etc. This is what education literally means. Bringing out, bahar nikalna.
हम्म,
This is what the word educe, bring forth, educe, bring forth. This is what it literally means. Right?
yes.
It's already 9:11, but I think I'll just complete this letter today.
आपने अध्ययन का भी बताया था ना अनमोल, उसमें
Adhyayan means going up. Adhi
अध्ययन
means
गोइंग
up.
अप, आदि
Ayan
मीन्स
means
अप.
journey. Yeah.
या
Etymology is one of the greatest ways of, matlab,
या
having that
Understanding.
certainty in language, certainty in knowledge, sorry. Yeah, understanding. I'll just complete this last, hopefully, 9:12. Should I, or I think I should, वरना next time के लिए फिर postpone हो जाएगा. Yeah. In a certain sense, the various purushas or beings in us, psychic, mental, vital, physical, are projections of the Atma. But that gets its full truth only when we get into our inner being and know the inner truth of ourselves. Right? So that original Purusha, that original entity being basically is that Atma, or when it is individualized, the Jivatma. So all these Purushas, psychic, Chaitya Purusha, Manomaya Purusha, Pranamaya Purusha, Annamaya Purusha, they are all in a certain sense projections of that true self, the Atman. But when will this become true for us? अभी तो हम to begin with मनोमय पुरुषा बन जाएं, जो हमारे प्राण और शरीर का नेतृत्व कर रहा है. That itself is a significant thing. शरीर का नेतृत्व माने not allow, you know, palate, मतलब ये खाना है, it's not good for your body, still you are eating it. No, the mind should prevail over it. What is healthy, you know, like that. Exercise, laziness हो रही है, no, the mind should prevail over it. आश्रम में कितना stress है on these things. Similarly, the vital, its desires, demands, all that, no, the mind has to prevail over it. So वही मनोमय पुरुषा प्राण शरीर नेता, like that. On the surface, in the ignorance, it is the mental, vital, physical prakriti that acts. And the Purusha is disfigured, as it were, in the action of Prakriti. इसी को गीता में क्षर पुरुष बोलते हैं. The Purusha, which is involved in the Prakriti and as if gets disfigured by the movements of Prakriti. This is what is called Kshara Purusha in the 15th chapter of the Gita. But यहाँ ध्यान दीजिए, is disfigured as it were, because the Purusha essentially, if anybody who has had a glimpse of the Purusha knows that it cannot be affected by anything. It is simply that witness, you know. Upadrashta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwaraha, 13.18 of the Gita. Anybody who has had a glimpse of the Purusha knows this. Okay, it is a glimpse of perfection. It is a glimpse of completeness, untainted. कुछ नहीं होता है उसको, as it were. But when it is involved, then as it were, it gets disfigured by the movements of Prakriti. We do not know that Purusha, na? We are involved in the Prakriti. We are Prakriti. So we have to disengage from these movements of Prakriti and become that Purusha. जो साक्षी भाव का मेडिटेशन आजकल बहुत सिखाते हैं लोगों को, it is for that purpose, to discover that Purusha within us. It's a very, very powerful. Sri Aurobindo has also spoken about it in the letters. Simply observing your thoughts and letting them die down. This is one way. Other is simply just observing your thoughts and observe that separateness starts to come in. कि these are ये हैं, मैं हूं, मैं ये नहीं हूं. I am not all these movements that are going on in the mind and vital. I am not these. I am not these. I am this witness consciousness. Other method is more drastic, matlab where you just observe them and silently they peter down basically and they become totally silent. Third जो होता है, which is most powerful, which Sri Aurobindo followed, rejecting the movements of the mind before the thoughts enter you, just throwing them out. That is why he could attain silence so easily, but that is more powerful. That requires a greater willpower and greater concentration power. Right? Last sentence of this letter. It is not our true mental being, our true vital being, our true physical being even that we are aware of. These remain behind, veiled and silent. It is the Purusha. Being is basically the Purusha. It is the mental, vital, physical ego that we take for our being until we get knowledge. So even if we are mentally developed and all those thoughts are there and we're getting many ideas and all, but until that sort of separation starts happening in the mind, until we are free from the movements of the mental prakriti itself and able to know ourselves more and more as the manomaya purusha, which is the true mental being, till such time even the mastery over our intellectual movements, our thought movements, it will not be complete. This is what he's saying here. It is the mental, vital, physical ego that we take for our being until we get knowledge. Ego का मतलब है ignorance, because ego is not the truth. It is a falsehood that way. Ego का कोई existence ही नहीं है. It's a mechanism of nature. It does not have any true existence. This knowledge point, just this knowledge point, कि ego does not have any fundamental existence of itself. It can be a great, great, great help in getting rid of ego. If the evolution of the individual has reached that stage wherein the ego is pestering him badly and he needs to get free, just ये उसको एकदम से liberate, अरे इसका तो कोई अस्तित्व ही नहीं है. अस्तित्व तो अंतरात्मा का है, which is a portion of the divine, which is eternal and all that. Anybody has any comments, questions, anything? We're already 9:18, but ठीक है, we have overshot. That's okay. जो मैंने वो 3 steps बताए थे, just because it's important, I'll say that again. So first I said कि you're just seeing the movements of the nature and you're seeing them and एक separation आ गया है, wherein more and more you are identifying yourself with the entity which is seeing and not with that which is being seen. This is one. Second, you observe it and sort of you put a will for these movements, and actually even first may slowly, as you just observe and you withdraw the support from that, the movements of the nature, they will sort of वो peter down और वो खत्म हो जाएगा and the mind will come into a silence, right? Third, which is most drastic, is you throw out the movements, you reject them completely. Before the thoughts can enter into you, before the desires, etc. can enter you, you just throw them out of yourself. And if one can do that, then one will enter into mental silence very fast. Sri Aurobindo was able to enter into it in one day, just one day. Just one day. वो three बोलते हैं 3 days, but वो letter में लिखा है मतलब between 2 commas, actually in one. Just in one, of course, he's avatar, he's God and all that, but he's come to set, but the avatar comes here to show us what is possible. He comes to show what are the possibilities in the human embodiment. So if he can do it in one day, so can we if we develop the necessary willpower and concentration power. It's not to get discouraged कि उन्होंने तो कर लिया हम कैसे. No, it's not that. Even we can do it. Shall we close with silence? 1 minute silence at least. Long session today. Okay.